right. Well, hi, friends. Thank you for tuning into the Odd Thoughts podcast. My name is Gunther, and I'm going to be your host. I'm using podcast as kind of a loose term, just more so an excuse to talk to myself. Put a microphone in front of me, and that's a podcast nowadays. Live from my very exclusive, very, very elite studio inside my own closet. But I'm excited to do this podcast. Nowadays, there are a lot of podcasts out there. I am someone that enjoys podcasting. I feel like there's so many different places you can find a podcast. I mainly go to YouTube, but I want to get into it. I'm using it more so maybe as like a open journal, I guess. Just in a something to talk about, something to use to talk about things more so. I have a hard time sometimes processing things when I keep it internal, when I keep it inside, and I'm always kind of thinking about things, and I always have an opinion, unfortunately, and so a microphone kind of gives me an excuse to verbalize things and not feel silly when I'm talking to myself. I maybe never really ever felt silly before, but it's kind of a therapeutic thing and maybe a way to take advantage of the fact that I like to talk and I like to think and I like to discuss anything. And that's kind of the general idea that I have behind this podcast is I just want to talk about the general odd thoughts throughout the day that I might have or general inquiries I have from day-to-day things. And I also maybe want to try to theme episodes a lot. I don't want it always to be just random rambles and talking about just nothing. I, I just sometimes it's okay to talk about nothing, but I want to be able to keep it very like exclusive to a certain theme and make sure that I have something planned out and have something scripted a little bit. But for episode one, I'm gonna keep it a little a little free, I guess. I'm just gonna go with it. I'm gonna kind of I don't know what to really talk about necessarily. I kind of had a good idea about just talking about getting started on podcasting, but more so, I guess, like I wanted to expand it on getting started in life in general. I feel like a lot of times, you go through certain times whether whatever age it is that you're fearing of starting things or whether it be a hobby or a new job or just a certain trend in your lifestyle and also sometimes in a way of like reinitiating things in your life and sometimes things fall out and you forget what things you loved or you forget about what you used to do or a person that you once were and that's okay to change but sometimes it was benefiting you and sometimes you just there's things that are missing in life that you haven't even started at in general. And that's something that I think I have a big problem with is for a lot of my life I've kind of just maybe sat around and thought about doing things but just haven't really followed through on it because I don't know. I have confidence issues, or I'm a very introverted person. I want to be an extrovert, but I find myself very introverted. So I struggle to even like have want to what emphasize ideas, express ideas more so. I have a problem going through with things because I'm also someone that doesn't want to like go 50% into something. I'm a 100% or nothing type person. I don't want to like fail myself. I don't want to let myself down. But if I think like that, then I'm never going to do anything. And lately, I've been ingesting myself in a lot of different ingesting myself. I've been taking in a lot of different hobbies, not just podcasting, but also I've been getting back into writing. And also, I've been getting into art. I've been just drawing a lot. And those are things that I loved as a kid. At one time I felt like I was such a artistic kid with art and I loved, being silly and talking and I've always been kind of a talkative kid once I get comfortable and that kind of went away for whatever reasons, for tons of different reasons. And so expanding on the creativity again is kind of really like helped me out. It's made me feel better. It gives me something to do throughout the day and make me feel like distracted. It makes me feel like also that I'm all achieving something throughout the day. Sometimes when, I'm not feeling very great at a job that I have or I don't wake up with the best feeling, the best attitude and that's quite often for me is waking up with just kind of already a piss poor attitude just immediately. So if I get something to just immediately distract myself, I can feel pretty good about things to come. Put myself in a good mood right off the bat is it feels better. It's something that I enjoy, and it's something I wish that I would have done for a long time. I wish that for all these years I would have continued on all these things, but obviously for unforeseen things when I was younger, I didn't have all control over my life, right? And I don't have to delve too deeply into things, but things just were always like it felt like I was always in a state of like a little bit of a panic, even when things were settled and I was fine and things were okay in school or things were okay at home or whatever. Like I always felt a little like skittish. I always felt like well things could crumble underneath my feet at any time. So I couldn't even really think in like that creative space or even know what that meant to be in a creative space. But it never really went away, I guess. I always say that my imagination is stuck pretty consistent throughout my life. I can close my eyes and when I get to like in my own little world or when I'm on my own and I'm not overstimulated by the world around me, I really start to like feel better about things and I start to like open my creativity up and have a little fun with life and have a little fun with things and you know that's hard sometimes. That is, especially when I get a little older and I get towards like being more adult, whatever that means. I'm turning 27 in a couple weeks. And it's stressful. I already feel like I've wasted most of my 20s, I already feel like I've wasted most of my life, but now at 27, I'm kind of sitting at this point where I wish I would have taken advantage of a lot of the hobbies or a lot of the things that I've wanted to do in life and not just sat there and said, well, I'll do it tomorrow or maybe like when I get a little older I can handle it or maybe the idea that I don't need to do it. That's just a silly thing to think too. Like why think that I'm not able to do something? Why count myself out? It's something that I do quite often. I find is like counting myself out before I can even get a chance to be accepted or rejected or know if I'm good at something. I feel like everybody can relate to that a little bit. And I know, especially in my age group right now, I'm coming up also on my 10th high school anniversary, graduation reunion or whatever you want to call it. And that's crazy to think. I'm like, it's like blowing my mind. It's like, wow, 10 years since high school. And I haven't really done much, and that's a stressful thing. Uh, I don't know if anybody ever cares about me like that. Nobody who does, I'm sure. Like, well, as from school, like school wise, there's people in my life that I love and I appreciate, and friends that I very much so love, and family that I very much so love. But like, nobody's paying attention to me like that. So what am I stressing out about already? And why compare myself to those people? I'm happy to see all these people doing great things. One big thing about Facebook that I do love is I'm friends with a lot of people who's a lot of these people on Facebook, and I get to see them do great things in life or just do things. And that's I'm proud of that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel, somewhat associated with those people that those people were, successful that I can have that same sort of success. So I just got to get into that mindset though. And everybody has that that mindset, both my sides of the mindset of like, well, I have to get through things in life and I have to continue on and I got to move forward, but also the doubt. Nobody I think ever really feels that adequate. You tell yourself you're adequate, people tell you that you're adequate, but I don't know how many people really truly feel that adequate. I know that I don't always. So, with the creative thing, with expanding my creativity every day, just trying to do a little bit more with writing, with drawing, with trying to get into podcasting, I'm feeling better about myself, and that I realize is giving me confidence. Like I said, as an introverted person, I feel very stalled at times. I feel very like stuck in the mud. I'm not moving very much. I'm not doing anything. And I associate that with laziness sometimes. And I feel lazy, even though my mind's very active I have no struggle with wanting to do something in the way of like, just taking advantage of like a moment of progress or taking action into something that's going to better me. Yeah, working has never been a problem for me, right? Like if I gotta get things done, run, errands in my life, I'm gonna mostly do it. But I do find certain stresses in my life, and I let those take over me, and then that makes me not want to do things that actually help me in life, and that's tough. So getting in a better mood, feeling more confident in myself, escaping that introvertedness for a little bit, and expressing myself in different ways. I find that's gonna be probably a more successful way to help myself. And I don't have to surround myself with a bunch of people and have people assure me. And I want maybe that one day, but only if I deserve it. That's kind of like the whole thought of, that's a struggle with that thought of like, do I deserve it or not? But I want to be able to accept feeling good about myself. And if I do things that make me feel creative or make me feel accomplished, I decide, I do a little writing and I feel like I'm working on a story and I feel like I've reached a certain point to that I'm created like at least like an outline or whatever. That makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I've actually done work. It makes me feel like I've actually accomplished something. And I think, everybody's a little goal oriented a little bit, or at least achievement feels good for everybody. And so uh, it's fun when I get to see this progress, and little by little, I always see an end goal, and I really would love just to be good at everything, not better than everybody, but just be good at stuff. But if I don't take the steps, then I ain't going nowhere. And then that really equates to then my mental health and my own personal being of, can I take these small steps every day to feel good about my general being? And I know that's going to affect my life in a good way. That's only going to affect me positively, and it's going to help the people also around me that I love. I think it probably hurts when people that you love see you in a bad spot. It hurts. They don't want to see it, and especially when they can relate to it, it hurts. So if you're doing a little better in life, I'm sure that helps a lot of things with the people around you, and also obviously with someone themselves. So I'm working on a little bit, getting started with all these things. That's always been a long, 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 like like tasking task. Just something that's weighed on my shoulder that's really made me feel I have so many things I want to do, but I can't do any of them because like what's the necessary one? I have things in my like personal life that I need to do, right? I need to like pay, bills, and I need to like have like work and stuff like that. But then also like, can I equivocate doing these creative things and say that's also important in my life? And that's what I would need to do. That's because that makes me feel good. Is I need to also see that the little things are just as big as the big things. So those big things are going to be there. But if I'm ignoring all these little things, I'm not really giving myself a chance to do much. I'm just sitting there like doom, like just sitting in my doom. That's such a big thing. I feel like so often I just sit there in my room and I'm just sitting just thinking about the worst scenarios. I just it's sad. It's depressing. And then I get a little mad at myself because then I'm like, why do that? Why do that? Why sit there and just like think stupidly like that? But also, I can't then, deny what I'm feeling. I can't belittle my feelings because they're going to be there. If I start just like hating on myself for doing it, then I'm just going to hate myself at the end of the day. And I already hate myself enough. I don't need that more. So I've learned that I need to see doing these little creative things and doing little things, just even like waking up and brushing my teeth as wins, as little wins, and that I'm achieving something throughout the day. And I think it's just going to be a betterment. So I'm having fun. I'm having a lot of fun. Most of the drawing thing has been like I think the biggest thing. Just I've kind of had this interest in like drawing realism, kind of like people. I'm not very good. I'm learning, so I'm just not good at it. And also like perspective drawings, vanishing points, like seeing like if you're like looking down a street, you're seeing buildings, and also like or like a winding road, kind of going through the like. I've been working at it, and hopefully one day, maybe if I get a little confident, I'll share that progress. Um, as a kid, I always remember being so interested in that kind of stuff, and having art class in school, I think was such a beneficial thing, right? Because it gives you that little creative, like, boost every, couple of days or whatever it would be that you would do it. So this inner child's kind of gleaming a little bit now that I'm back doing art, and I'm a little more intelligent. Obviously, I don't know how much more intelligent than I was, but I'm having more fun learning, and I'm using like my my big boy brain to learn how to do things and learn how to draw a little better and picking up things a little quicker than I think I would have ever expected to have. And for years, I would have never known I could do any of this unless I would have tried. But for years, I just didn't want to try because of X, Y, Z, A, B, C, M, N, O, whatever, yada, yada, yada. So I've had a lot of fun. and I'm still a little scared to expand like bigger. I've got just sketches and pencil drawings in my like a little notebook that I have, but I'm too scared to like bring it to a bigger thing. Involve I got colored pencils. I'm throwing a little color in there, but I ain't got paint. I'm not doing that yet. I don't got the canvas and easel yet. I'm having fun with it though. And it's like I said, helped boost my morale and helped me feel like I want to do other things throughout the day. It's kind of like a domino effect where like I start doing this thing and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can do a little bit of this. And like today, like I've just been drawing for the last few hours, and then I was like, oh man, like I'm just gonna go and podcast. And I've had all these ideas about like what the first episode should be, and like this idea of perfection, but I'm just gonna throw this episode up and just throw it up. And then after that, I'm just going to throw up another episode and I'll just keep going. And then eventually, like I said, like as I get more comfortable, I'll throw in more theme things and be able to like have more of a scripted feel to things without without it feeling like I'm reading off a script. A script, but I'm not script, dude. Some semi scripted, semi discussive. You know what I'm saying? So I just hope that it keeps going like that. Everything launches into something else. So I decided to do this podcasting, and hopefully that's something I continue to do. And podcasting's so big right now. Everywhere you look, there's podcasts, right? And not only like can you find different sources to grab a podcast like Spotify or YouTube, but also with like social media. It's you scrolling through social media with all like Facebook Reels or Instagram Reels or whatever, or Facebook whatever. Like you're finding videos and clips of podcast, or finding out that your favorite celebrity or whatever the hell like has a podcast, and that's a cool thing. It helps. It makes it feel a little more personable. It's a more personable content. I feel like sometimes when you're on like a movie streaming service or where you're trying to find a TV show, sometimes there's a struggle of like trying to find something that's geared towards you. And not everybody's like a horror fan, or not everybody's an action fan, or not everybody's a comedy fan. But maybe you want to try to get into those things, but like it's hard to like find that kind of stuff. And I guess podcasting is not really the same as television or movies, but it adds like a personal type content. You can kind of like ingest someone's personality through the screen or through listening better than you do a movie or a TV show, because they're supposed to be playing characters. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that I feel very great about, or like feel very like good listening to, and it's something that not only thing I don't just listen to podcasts, but that audio factor. Also having a video podcast is nice, but it's more about the audio, like putting it on and just having it in the background while you're doing something. But also, I find myself engaging with podcasts a lot. Like I talk along with podcasters whenever whatever they talk about, and that's fun for me. It makes me feel like I'm involved, and it kind of gives me like a way of like discussing things with people, because as with my introvertedness, I'm not always going around talking, and I feel like I sometimes am a burden when I am talking to people. So it's nice to sit there and like feel like I'm not just talking to myself, i.e. having a microphone is another part to that. And I just stick on YouTube mostly to find my podcast. I think that has like a higher success rate, and I would highly recommend, because YouTube to me has always had like that general common type content, or it's like a variety of whatever you want, whether it be as fun, mindless as you want, or as like informative as you want, or just as melancholy as serious. If it's like more vlog style, more about real life things, if it's sketches, if it's different things. And music and news outlets have YouTube channels. So there's so much content to get up on YouTube, and podcasting is where I find my podcast on YouTube. Not it's not what I watch YouTube outside of podcasting, but you podcasting is good on YouTube. Man, that was tough to say, huh? What the heck? But I'm having fun so far. I've learned that I don't necessarily maybe need a topic to talk about. I kind of had that stress of what's my first topic I'm going to talk about? What's the first thing I want to talk about with podcasting, and having something good, and maybe something that kind of ties into everything that I want to do. But I just decided that maybe I should just get up on the mic and talk, because nobody even knows really who I am, or what I'm about, or what I sound like necessarily. So why don't I just do something about talk, just something to get out there and just talk. And I guess I have a little bit of the theme of, like I said, starting habits and starting hobbies, and getting started in things in life. And so, podcasting, why not? Let's just add it on. And having fun with writing as well. Like I said, that's another creative outlet I've had. Like I have fun trying to create up stories in my head, and I find it very hard to like expand on stories a lot. Expand on characters and expand on like a prolonged thing, or like you have maybe like I said, I always get like these outlines done on what I want like a story to be, but like I find it like I kind of like I don't know how to write multiple pages of like each bullet point that I have, like kind of like each point in a story. I find it hard to to expand on that. But I have fun creating these kind of worlds in my head and these characters and trying to put it out there and seeing how relevant storytelling is. And it's not maybe not necessarily with the intentions of like writing like a book, but like I'm also someone who loves like narration storytelling type videos on YouTube, and that kind of goes along with just like the audio aspect of like podcasting. I just love having like that background noise sometimes. So like I love sometimes just hearing like audiobooks. Like I love that. I love hearing people like narration style stuff. And people get into character, or people have this certain voice that really projects that style. And so like I give myself like a little inner voice every time I'm reading something or creating something. And I could sit there for hours and I feel like I'm just like typing and typing and typing. And I have a lot of fun, like I said, creating these worlds. And I think it's kind of a lost thing, a little bit of like the writing. Maybe like I just like at one time I remember being a kid, loving stories, but never being like a solid writer. I just didn't know how to like not only not great with the spelling always and not great with the grammar always, but like sometimes just finding that language, how to write in a certain language, a certain perspective, and expand on that. And that I find that kind of hard. It's easier, I guess, to create the people in a story and the place, and you kind of know maybe what their progression through a story is. But also I find it hard to find that resolve sometimes, or like find that language that I wanted to be told in, and keeping that language told. Sometimes I'd be starting stories in like a first person narrative, but then I want to switch between like first and third person, or like kind of like a narration first person style, and I find that hard to sometimes switch back and forth. But also like how do you like differentiate, yeah, how do you differentiate those voices? How do you make them different? But it's only through writing am I going to learn how to write. It's only through more writing am I going to learn that stuff. And I guess I can read a little bit. I don't know. I guess I can read some books. The last book I read actually was The Exorcist. I read like the novel version of The Exorcist, and the new Exorcist movie's coming out too, and that's pretty funny. It was a great book. It literally I think is sometimes more visual than the movie. Like I think sometimes like I like it made me a little more scared. And that's how I felt with The Shining. Like have you ever read like the book for The Shining? And then you watch like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, you're kind of like, where's all like the mystical, fantastical, shining stuff that literally Stephen King talks about in the book, in the movie Doctor Sleep, you kind of get more of that, like I think like Stephen King's Shining, like the more of like what he felt like was like his like version of The Shining, what he felt like was best. So I'm having fun though. I really am though. Sorry for that little tangent, but I'm having fun doing all these creative different outlets. I want to try to keep myself busy with as much as possible, and maybe that just keeps me distracted enough that maybe it's not more so compartmentalizing what's more important, but it's like why not just try a little bit of everything and just see how chaotic it really gets, and maybe more like the chaos of action and progression in my life is keeping me from the chaos of my own head and like my own thoughts. Anytime I'm getting a little in my head and getting a little like something's too intense for me, maybe I come on and do a podcast, right? If I need I have this creative flow, I get out and I draw, or if I have a story that I'm just bursting, I write it down and I drew and I write something. So I just need to remember to keep with that and to keep to that progression and keep doing these little small steps to get better at it, because like it's only gonna be something bigger. I'm not in the way of like bigger than anything ever in the world, or a totally this massive whatever thing. It's about being bigger than what it is now. It's about being more impactful in my life. It's about being a little bit better to myself. Also learning. I mean, learning never stopped outside of school, right? Like that's the whole point of school, was like they teach you stuff in school, but it's more about like the questions they ask you, not the answers necessarily. You're supposed to take what you learn in school and you apply it into the real world, even though some of the stuff it's like obviously some of the stuff was maybe a little silly, but it's the point of application. How are these things that I'm doing going to apply in my real life? So that's where the creative process is helping me. How is it applying in my real life? It's helping me be in a little bit better mood. Cool. A little bit better mood helps me gain a little more confidence. Cool. Anything to take me out of that introvertedness, that in my headness, makes me feel a little bit better. And will help me also, like I said, I want to be an extrovert so bad. So hopefully makes me more engaging. With a podcast, that's kind of like one thing I really want is the engaging part. I always watch podcasts and I always like talk along with the podcast and I feel like I'm discussing along with them. Or I try to listen to podcasts where they're going to talk about things that I might agree with or I might feel like akin to in some type of way. So I have a lot of fun thinking about the idea of this engaging process of a podcast, having someone along with me listening and feeling like they can relate and maybe even getting inspired to do their own. And that's cool. Also with art, the same thing. Maybe like I said, maybe if I get a little more confident, I start posting the art that I do. You gotta give me a little time, let me feel a little bit better about it, and maybe that gets people to do their own art. And if I see that more, that just make that's I think that's a cool idea is to see more of that and try to surround myself more with that kind of stuff and more engage. Like I said, engaging myself not only in the actions of these creative things, but also like it maybe it engage me in the real world, making me feel like I'm a little more worthy. Because that's a big question is worth. The question that I've literally asked my whole life is what is my worth? What am I supposed to do? Where am I going? Is the things that I'm doing is it helping me or is it hurting me? And I've done a lot of things that haven't helped me. I make a lot of decisions that aren't always the best for me and I could think maybe I can blame some of it or I can equate some of it to my mental state, having depression, having anxiety, certain things, ADHD, certain things like that. But it's a lot of it holds on my shoulders. At the end of the day, I can't just like act like this like emotional being all the time. I have to also remember like it affects other people. People get overstimulated and people like are reactionary, as am I. I'm not always like receptive to people's emotions, and that's a shameful thing. Sometimes I feel like I don't think that's for everybody. Obviously, not everybody has. You don't have to like appeal to people's feelings. You don't have to, but as a person who's a very emotional being who feels a lot of these like strong feelings, like I need to also understand that that can affect other people and might react. How we react can help make people react a certain way too. You can say what I always think like you can say whatever you want in life, right? But people can say whatever they want back. And then you can do whatever you want with that, but then they can do the same thing back to you. It's always going to be a chain reaction. It's always going to be the state of things. So I'm trying to do my best to keep it to myself, but also express it in other ways. So everybody I think can relate to that, right? I think everybody can relate to that a little bit. Everybody has those certain thoughts that they're maybe not good enough or am I really in a right position? Have I done enough? Am I a good this? Am I a good that? Am I doing what I'm doing? Is it right? And I feel like as long as you have some sort of outlet, and it doesn't have to be some sort of grand gesture, it doesn't have to be some sort of, buying of some more materialistic thing, but that may be your thing. It doesn't have to be, art, but it could be your thing. It doesn't have to be, it could be as simple even as like going out and taking a cruise around your car, right? Late at night, just doing that kind of thing that makes you feel like a little like disconnected, or maybe makes you feel a little connected, makes you feel a little human. Because do you try to separate yourself from the chaos, or do you try to like maybe put yourself in the middle of it and that's where you're best? Or are you just trying to like say like when I'm in the chaos and then I separate myself and I can do all these other things outside of it? Or do you want to involve all that? And that's not necessarily everybody's choice, personal choice, right? Sometimes the chaos just follows and you could be a good person and bad things happen to you. We've all realized that. And bad people have good things happen to them. It's a 50-50 toss here. It's you could be born a certain way. You could be born in a certain place and that provides you a certain outcome in life at the beginning, but then things can change. Things can flip or they cannot flip and you're stuck on that one side of the coin, right? That's a tough realization is how much of it is in your hand, how much of it is not, and what is your response when it's not in your hand? How are you going to respond to it? And can you grab it in your hands? Can you put it in your hands and do something with it? So I think that's where I'm at in life. I think a little bit everybody can relate to that. I'm trying to put it in my hands and do something with it. And I find maybe that a little bit of that chaos is okay. if I feel these like feelings of depression, or I feel anxiety, or I feel a little anger, like I'm gonna use that as a launching point. I'm gonna try to use that as more like a, oh, plant my ground, take off, let's do something with it, instead of like just sulking on it and let it affect everything. Being in the mood to go out, and then all of a sudden I'm like feeling something, and then I don't want to go out. I got to go run errands, but then I'm like, I got a little tinge in my brain, a little whatever, so then I can't go out, for whatever reason. I got to see it's I'm stopping that process, and I'm trying to like put that feeling and be like a launching pad, right? Like a lot, like trying to go into things and say like, oh, this is only going to fuel something better. This is only going to fuel more of this creative process, or only fuel this progression in my life. And for so long I've thought so wrong. I think I've felt so bad about myself, and a little sorry for myself, but more so just like the way I talk to myself, the way that I think about myself. And you know people are going to believe what they believe when you tell them that. If you tell them that you're stupid, if you're like, it's a joking thing, but then like people believe it, it's like that's because it's kind of on you. So, and also what you perpetuate is going to come back at you. It's just what it is. And I've perpetuated a certain emotion a lot of times, and I find that it does come back at me, and people don't even like necessarily involve themselves with me because of how I act. Or like I feel like, there's certain, I've always maybe felt a certain way towards something. So when I all of a sudden I flip a certain opinion or whatever, I flip or like something, then it's like, oh, well, we didn't even know that. It's like, well, but I've sold myself short. And I'm done selling myself short. I'm trying to progress, trying to work on it. We can all work on it, right? Y'all are all doing good. We're all doing good. We're all okay. Yeah, y'all don't have to hear that from me though. Y'all know. Y'all know. So I think that's it for my first episode. Like I said, I had maybe a couple things that I wanted to talk about, or like I tried having themes for this, but if I don't have something out there, I'm never gonna know if I can do this thing. And I can always progress and do a little bit better and shift the momentum. And so this is just me trying to get something out there. So thank y'all for listening. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna post this up on YouTube. I'll post it up on Facebook too, and I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter. I'm gonna leave that stuff in like my bio, or I'm gonna leave it in like the description or whatever, just so because it's sometimes harder to say, and I don't want to get all fumbled mouth. So I appreciate y'all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Y'all are awesome. Thank you for giving me the time. And if any of y'all feel a certain way, if any of y'all are out there that need some sort of expression, go for it. It's hard to get started. So as soon as you get started, it feels a lot better. But I appreciate y'all listening. This has been Gunther and the Odd Thoughts podcast, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you.